2 points and to throw this to Erik briefly, because I think the general adds in the other point, which is timing here. When you talk to the Chinese, as you do in the States, they say in the medium term our interests line up wonderfully. We want to keep growing at 9% a year. We've got all these internal problems we want to deal with. The rest of Asia is not ready. Every time we sneeze in the South China Sea, the Vietnamese want to meet with Gates. They make mistakes and come closer to us. Well, this gives us time to do these things, what we're saying, but not forever. So where managing and where the European approach is great is that's what we're going to have to do with diminished power on both sides more. It's not a checklist where that's done, that's done, that's done. How do we manage this rise in a way that we try to make stakeholders of India? And again, China is shorthand in America for South Africa, Brazil, Turkey, India, the Gulf states. All these other people nobody's ever had to study before are saying no to us and not doing what we want quite. How do we bring them on board based on both values, but particularly in the short run interests, because they're not all going to share my values given their culture tomorrow. So how do we, with this timing, bring them on board? Then they begin to trust us, they see that they do better in that world, and then they begin to help us for the best of all reasons it's in their interest to do so. I mean, isn't that, we're getting somewhere in terms of this discussion, but Erik, what I want to press you on is, how does the economic turmoil as a PR thing hurt this whole very rational, reasonable, we're getting somewhere approach? Because if the timing of this speeds up, meaning if Europe doesn't solve its problems, if America doesn't address the sovereign debt issues, the indebtedness that it has, we don't do a Bowles-Simpson type thing and get debt to GDP at 60 to 70%, a manageable number. Doesn't this whole time frame that we're talking about speed up? And wouldn't that be a problem?
Oh, absolutely. I think the time frame that we're dealing with, let me preface it this way. There was a wonderful study that was done by the IMF looking at the room for fiscal maneuver. Yeah. And the press reported out of this study that many more countries had room for fiscal maneuver than we expected. And that's what the study said. But what the study also said, and this is the key element, is that there's a nonlinear transformation in the markets as you approach that limit. We don't know when that nonlinear transformation is. What that means in English is at some point the markets lose confidence and turn against you. So long before we run out of fiscal room for maneuver, the markets can turn, and we can't predict when that's going to happen. We are running out of space within which the markets can turn. We've got plenty of fiscal room for maneuver to go, but we don't know when the markets are going to wake up to their own concern about this. So I think that the time horizon is short, but even more important, I think our ability to estimate the time horizon has diminished. So we don't really have any sense now of where things are going to go. For China, this is critical, right? Because when we look at the Chinese economic relationship with the United States, we tend to focus on the financial side of the relationship. China has all this money that it loans to the United States to finance American consumption. What we ignore is the incredible dependence that the Chinese economy has on that American consumption. If you look at the Beijing stock index, what you will find is that in the 2008 crash, it lost 10 times as much value relative to its own index. So 10 times as big a drop as the drop that we experienced on Wall Street. And if there's another crash, there's going to be a crash inside China. And they can't sustain that. They already had 180,000 protests in the course of the last year. Yeah. How much more social instability can they manage? And as General Naumann pointed out, we have demographic problems in the West. China has demographic problems that make ours look minor by comparison. In 2050, China's population is going to be as old as Germany's population is today. It's going to go from 13% of the population over the age of 60 to 32% of the population over the age of 60. They don't have the pension savings for that huge population overhang. So how are they going to finance the consumption of those people? They have to not only develop the economy, raise incomes, but also set money aside for the deferred consumption of a workforce that will have been worked to the bone with no medical benefits.
You don't want to get old without getting rich.
Yeah.